There is a very interesting story in the Talmud about the famous personality Rabbi Akiva that he was once teaching his students. He looked out and he saw that they were falling asleep. So he stopped the course of the discussion and he said, "My students, do you know why it is that the famous personality Queen Esther of the Purim story was ultimately able to rule over 127 provinces? It was because prior to her, her great-great-grandmother was Sarah, wife of Abraham, subject of this week's portion, who lived 127 years. Look at the correlation, 127 years of Sarah, 127 provinces ruled over by Queen Esther. And somehow with that, the students all woke up and the conversation and discussion continued. What's the meaning of the story? I mean, it gives me a little bit of comfort to know that a rabbi as famous as Rabbi Akiva so many years ago had problems with people falling asleep, as rabbis often do in the service when we look out and see members of the community being put to sleep by our sermons. But there must be something more profound that was being communicated. Rabbi Akiva lived in a very difficult time. It was a time of destruction. The temple was destroyed. The Jewish people were about to be dispersed into a variety of exiles. Rabbi Akiva knew that the central core of the temple was everything about Judaism. If anyone at that time had predicted, could you and I still be around today, so many years later, without a temple, nobody would have thought that Jewish survival could take place, that there would be Jewish continuity. The temple meant everything. It was the core, the central core of Jewish practice. Rabbi Akiva looked around at the despondency, at the destruction, at the apathy, at the paralysis that was setting into his community. It was a Jewish generation that was falling asleep. They had lost the desire and the energy to continue. So he turned to them and he said, "Yidden, Jewish people, wake up! Do you know why it is that we had famous personalities such as the heroine Queen Esther? And she was able to turn around a time of such darkness where Haman had decided to destroy, God forbid, every Jewish person on earth. The anti-Semitism was rife. And she turned it around and became the queen, ultimately ruling with her husband Ahasuerus over 127 provinces of the world. How did she have the power to do that? Because she didn't act alone. She was the product of Mesirut Nefesh, of self-sacrifices, of generations that came before her, rooted in our mother, Sarah Imenu. Sarah lived 127 years, which included so many difficult challenges. Exile, being kidnapped, being held captive twice. And nonetheless, with all the changing, challenging circumstances of her life, she lived 127 years, as the commentaries say, Kulan Shavin Latova. All of them were equally good. Not equally good in circumstances. Circumstances of her life was a roller coaster of ups and downs. But equally good in staying focused on the cause, on the purpose, on the values, on the mission that she and Abraham, our forefather, had to accomplish together. So she bequeathed this strength to the generations that followed, all the way down to Queen Esther, says Rabbi Akiva to his generation. And you and I, living through such difficult times of challenge and darkness and anti-Semitism and hatred and persecution, we have to know that we have the power to wake up and to live lives that are committed, and we are strengthened and emboldened by the knowledge that we do not act alone, that we have the accumulation of generations that preceded us, who had Mesirut Nefesh, self-sacrifice, to achieve the purpose for which they came down into this world. He turned to his generation, he said, "My people, wake up, so we cannot allow ourselves to become despondent." And today we live in such difficult, sad times. We're constantly glued to the latest news to find out what is unfolding for our brothers and sisters in Israel. Will the captives be set free today? On our hearts, heavy every single day and every single night. And Rabbi Akiva's words in this portion that talks about the life of Sarah echo through all of the ages and stages of Jewish history and remind us to wake up, to be Jews that are alive and committed and fired up to make every single day count. I'm so proud of the over 150 posts that have emanated from our community members trying to do a mitzvah to reach the number, please God, 240, one for each of the hostages. May they be set free soon. the candle lighting, the chesed, the kindness that is being done in the community in Israel and around the world. That is the power and the strength of Am Yisrael, that all of our years should be kulan shavin l'tovah, should be equally good. They cannot be equally good in terms of circumstance. We're going through a very dark and difficult time. But the light is beyond, and the miracles are waiting. And please God, through our efforts to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of our family, our community, and Am Yisrael, will turn this around, and the darkness will change around to be the 127 provinces, will be a world and a time ahead of us in which we will once again feel the joy and the happiness so obviously evident. Please God, with the redemption and the revelation of Mashiach, may it be speedily in our days. May we today, please God, hear news that brings us the positive account of the return of the hostages. May they come home. May they be reunited with their families. Good Shabbos.